Oh my goodness, it's been a minute. Welcome to Above Board with Candor Path with John, Matt, and Rich. We are so excited. If I am not mistaken, this is a centennial celebration. Wait,
It's a big one.
Is centennial 100?
I was going to go with the flow,
It's
but it's
how I
100.
feel on the inside and look on the outside is my centennial right
We
now.
strapped Matt up to a bunch of biometric testing, and his age is 100. Actually,
I did that, and it said that my biometric age was 39, which was very impressive.
It's amazing.
I know. I'm making that up. That never happened.
Oh,
Welcome to our 100th episode of Above Board with Candor Path, where we're going to do a look back. And we're going to talk about a couple of things that we talked about this year that was significant to us. We all came together in a previous podcast and talked about our year, a year of yes, a year of no, and being present. So that was representative of the three of us. If I remember correctly, John was the year of no.
he's just looking at me. I'm letting you. I'm gonna make you fight. I'm gonna make you fight through this. Yeah, no, mine was. So we did 3 separate episodes. Mine was the year of no.
Yeah, so I got it right. And Matt was the year of yes.
Taking the opposing view was the year of yes. But just to shed light on that, it wasn't that I was going to say no to everything. And he was, well, no, you were going to say yes to everything, Matt.
I was going to say yes to everything, yes.
And mine was putting myself in uncomfortable situations where people would reject me.
Which I did. You're hard to reject because you're so damn cute. And then mine
but
was
yours was a year of awareness.
Awareness, not presence. Awareness, presence, kind of same. By the way, I just want to point out, I am wearing Above Board with Candor Path swag. I don't know, but for the clients of Above Board with Candor Path and also us that are part of it, this is nice, bro. Like, this is honestly the first time I've worn it because I wanted to save it for a podcast. This is a nice shirt. I like this.
Looking sharp.
Yes.
Looking sharp.
I love it. So yes. So let's start with yes, because we should always lead with yes. I already know the answer to some of these questions, but as I tell my kids, I never ask a question I don't already know the answer to. John, how was it, your year of yes?
That wasn't me. That was Matt. Matt, what was saying yes to everything I asked you to do?
So here,
Joe Rogan, I am not. Joe Rogan, I am not. So Matt, sorry. Yes.
Very much like my gym membership that starts off really, really strong on January 1st and 2nd and 3rd, and then just like slowly trails off all the way till like mid-February. So did my year of yes. And I'm saying this because I know my family will be listening to this. And where I think I went wrong was both of my boys happened to listen to that episode in the car on our way to school. And when I say they exploited the living hell out of the year of yes for me, it actually turned me around very quickly because there was a lot of, well, but Daddy, you said it's the year of yes to some very, very unreasonable requests.
An example would be?
Mostly it had to do with dessert, where I'm trying to keep everyone healthy and maintaining a balance, and they really exploited my year of yes.
I have to support that.
But yeah, the spirit of it, was there anything that you was there a situation you put yourself in that you otherwise wouldn't have? Because the spirit of it wasn't so much like feeding the kids Skittles. Yeah,
I know one.
I'm actually worried.
Me too, actually.
I think it was agreeing to work with Don and I on our finances.
There was one of them. John, what was yours? Because I need to know that before I give my answer.
Well, mine was just mine in the spirit of honesty. Mine was just a year of experiencing like failure with this whole year of no thing. Not that my goal was to seek out 100 rejections. And I think the high point, or one of the really cool ones, if you guys remember when we talked about this, it was an excerpt from a book written by Alan Stein Jr. And it was kind of this comedian's pursuit that he was writing about, and her journey of experiencing 100 rejections and toughening her skin, but then also like finding that, gosh, when you put yourself in these situations enough, like someone will say yes, and it'll lead to kind of cool opportunity. And so one of the highlights of this was I actually asked Alan Stein, like I reached out to him and I said, hey, Alan, this was the impetus for a podcast we did and kind of this journey I'm pursuing. And he was at first he was a little more reserved and guarded, but then after like a couple of interactions, he's like, I'll come on your show. So he came on our show in the middle of the year and we got to talk with him. So that was pretty cool.
That was yours. You jumped in front of me, John.
You asked me what mine was, didn't you?
Yes, he did.
It was my.
Yeah, you did.
No,
You
I
said,
said what was yours. You said you knew what one of my yeses were. That's what I thought it was.
I thought you meant
I don't
like
know.
John, go first. I need a second to think. So
That's
No,
what I
I
thought too.
okay.
Rich, you and I are on the same page.
you're
We
a
felt
poor
that.
communicator.
We both felt that way.
Maybe this year can be a year of learning how to communicate
We
clearly.
are out of sync, the three. Look at us not like
We are-
fumbling through
It's
this
been a
one.
minute. It's been
We're
like
not even
September.
Backstreet Boys.
So I'll hand it over to John. I think one of mine, and there were many opportunities that came my way that I would have said no to. One is a really interesting one. It's getting to know my neighbors better. Right? It was
because you've been kind of a jerk about that.
I was real jerky, and
You
I'm real
were.
reserved,
Ironically, we're
and
all your neighbor.
you are all my neighbors, but there's two of the fellas that we've been hanging out with a little bit more, and at the beginning of the year, you guys were doing one of your never-ending I'm trying to improve myself and get myself better competition. And I think it was about 70 days, 75 days, 75 hard. I ended up walking with you guys at least 2 or 3 of the mornings during that. So a small little non-work element to it was getting to know my neighbors a little bit better and putting myself out there and saying like, I don't really feel like getting up at 5 a.m. to go for a walk, but like, let's do that. Cause I was asked. And I think even John exploited that a few times by saying like, it's the year of yes.
Oof.
Work wise, nothing really, I think was paramount that kind of jumped up at me. You know, we had a really good year work wise. Maybe it was just a mindset shift. And that could have very well been one of the elements of the year of yes, was just shifting the mindset and maybe subconsciously moving forward with some things. But there wasn't one single thing. It was a real fun year. It was a fun exercise to have. I don't have a new one for 2024, so I hope that was the next question.
We're gonna assign you one.
We'll assign you
I'm
one.
done improving. I'm kind
You're
of done improving. So
you reached your apex. You reached your apex. And by the way, for full clarification,
it's as good as it's gonna get. Is basically what I'm saying.
Right. When Matt just said you guys in 5 a.m. walks, he trying to make it sound like it's me, but I did not participate in any of that self-improvement. I did not participate in 75 hard. I did not do any of that. So I don't want to take any credit. He's referring to another group of you guys because they know better than to ask me to do that, because I won't, because I'm jerk. No, I'm not a jerk.
We did have some fun private text messages between Wes and I where we tried to get we just kept pushing the time sooner to see Matt's threshold.
No, did you really?
So, I think the earliest that was thrown out there that Matt finally said no to was like 3:30 a.m. Because Wes gets up super early for work, and so like that's actually legitimate for him. He can get up and do that. Yeah. And even I was like, oh, I hope Matt.
We should have Wes on. We should have Wes on the podcast for no other reason other than he's funnier than all of us put together. And I think I'm pretty funny, but when we all hang out together, I'm actually sort of quieter than I normally am because he's just this other level of funny and he doesn't even realize it. So we should have him on just for entertainment value. So that was very.
I had one last one, Rich. And the only last one that I had was, and I did kind of think of one that was related to work, was to work towards meeting with more clients outside of our office. So that was sort of if a client was like, hey, let's go grab lunch, or it was me saying, hey, let's do something just a little bit different and let's just get out of this office-y environment or Zoom environment. Let's just go grab lunch and be around each other. So I think that presence, maybe, and that even leads into what yours was, Rich, is just being more present, more in the moment was what the attempt was that I tried to do. So
that's pretty cool.
I'm just going to share something because I know you well enough, and I think the reason that you did it, correct me if I'm wrong, was also because like a lot of times your default reaction to something is no. Like hey, you want to go do? No, I'm good. No. And if I'm not mistaken, weren't you just trying to kind of get out of that cycle of like I don't want my first reaction to be no. I'm going to force myself to say yes. And then like maybe obviously like unreasonable things like giving your kids like endless amounts of dessert, the line is drawn somewhere, but hopefully it maybe helped you kind of work towards like being a little more open-minded to stuff.
Being more conscious of it. Yeah. More conscious of it, I think was 100% the win.
Do you think, John, your first reaction to things is no? Like generally, like if Jackie says, oh, let's go do this, let's go out with this couple, let's have the, like, do you think, are you a yes, more of a like right to the cool? Yeah.
I don't know. I'm lukewarm to yes. I'm more yes than no most of the time, I
I gotta think
think.
about this. I think I'm more no than yes, to be honest. I think I think it, but then I like my first reaction is probably no. I think I am a reluctant yes, but then I try to get out of it later.
It's actually, that's a hard question to answer because like I think I'm comparing myself to you guys in this conversation, and maybe like with Matt, I think I say yes more than he does, which was
Okay.
part of his exercise was to say yes more. If you
Okay.
ask Jackie, if you ask my wife, she like I think I say no in her mind. I say no to everything. It's like kid's birthday party, no thanks. Like you know,
Yeah, no,
let's go shopping, no thanks.
what do you think what do you guys think I am? Like your impression of me. Am I a yes or no?
I know that you're an introvert pretending to be an extrovert, which I think is the common thread between the three of us. So I'm
Yes.
going to say you would shy away, but if you do have to get yourself up for it, you're going to be there with bells on, but you
Yes.
probably have to get yourself up to do
I
whatever that yes thing is. And you probably need to be mildly convinced of it, I would assume.
I think you're right on that. I think that's it. I think you nailed it. I think you got it. I think that's right.
A full year later in your year of awareness, and you just learned something about yourself today.
Well, and we'll get to. Should we do me next, or should we go to John?
Yeah.
John kind of
I
already.
interrupted Johnny. So let's go back to Johnny because I think the Allen Stein Jr. was a really big one. And I do think that there were a couple of other yes moments. And then we can get to Richie.
Can I just tag on to that?
Technically, I interrupted you actually.
Well,
by
and I'm
mistake.
going to interrupt Johnny because I had a funny moment with Allen Stein Jr. because he followed me on Instagram and we started chatting until I realized it was a fake account and it was not.
Oh yes.
And I was so mad because I was like, oh, look, he like, I wasn't even on the podcast, but he was so like into our podcast. He followed me. So then we start chatting and I'm like, thank you. You're welcome. And he's like, hey, would you be interested in, being in this group? And I'm like, oh my God, this is really cool. And I tell John's like, that doesn't sound like him. So then I looked and I saw it was like Allen Stein _ it was like a fake one, which I should know because I showed my kids, we just counted on TikTok. There's 74 fake The Rich B accounts on TikTok.
I've seen that before.
Yes.
One of them
is
is me.
Crazy to me.
One of them is mine.
What?
And I just spam everybody.
Well, someone did that for our company. Someone made a fake company page on social media for us, and it's
what?
I guess I never realized how common this is.
It's very
but I've
common.
seen that on yours too. I've seen just pages of other people. Like I can
weird.
scroll for days
Okay,
you.
So let's talk about you, like your year of no.
Yeah, well, I think I started with like the win, and there are a lot of good wins there. What I will say where I came up short is probably somewhere in the middle of the year. Like I was tracking them for a while because I'm like, I need 100 no's. Like you guys know me. Like when I set a goal, it's like there's specificity to it, and I have to do it. And so somewhere towards the middle of the year, I was like, forget this. I'm tired of tracking it, and life happened, and I think that was the hard thing. Was like on top of all the stuff you do, you're raising kids. Like we have a business. We're busy people, and then on top of all that stuff, constantly like reaching out to people for them to say no to me. Like it became a lot of work. Like I noticed there were days where I'm like, I'm spending a lot of time doing this. And so it was really fruitful and it was cool while I did it. I'd say I probably did it for like the first half of the year, and then just some life stuff happened to us and whatever. So we've had like some crazy stuff these last few months with like surgeries inside my household.
God, your last 2 weeks, it was like the biblical plagues of the Old Testament on your house. Like it wasn't even like I was away on the road and Dawn's like, I'm picking up the Kennedy's kids. I'm like, what? Why? And she's like, this happened, that happened, this happened. I'm like, oh my God. So like, we were like raising your kids for like
it's crazy.
Is that they built their house on an ancient burial ground, and so these are all of the ghosts coming up and just whacking away at the Kennedy household. I'm
going to come over with some holy water and some sage and take care of business.
His walls just bleed these days. It's just blood dripping at all times.
Because the funny backstory is, for the people that don't know, like I moved this year, but I moved within the neighborhood. I like the neighborhood so much, I stayed within our neighborhood.
He got further away from us, actually, is what he tried to do.
Literally. It felt like such a win. It was like this great thing to celebrate. Since we moved in this house, there's been just a series of not fortunate things that have happened to us. But 2024 is a new year. 2024 is a new year and it's upon us.
Listen, it's great, and we and the cool thing
paid up, so that's good
it.
News.
So do you feel like for both of you, do you feel like it was exercise that you're glad you undertook? Do you feel like it was underwhelming? Do you feel like you didn't give it your all? Do you feel
Yeah.
what's your
I
takeaway?
failed. Mine was a failure 100%, but
Okay.
in all of life, I take my failures and I try to learn something from them. I think the awareness was a real big piece that I took away from it, was that I do say no to a lot of things and try to train myself. It wasn't going to happen by stating it on a podcast and doing it for a week or two.
Right.
It's a mindset change, it's a
Right.
lifestyle change that I'm still adjusting to. I do look towards opportunities. There was actually a few that John was like, I actually said yes to one thing and I immediately told John, and John knows me besides my wife probably the best. And he's like, don't do this. It's
I
not a good one.
remember this
It was an
conversation.
opportunity to be a part of like a business group of some sort. And it would have just spread me way too thin. But I was like, yes, I got to do this. And he's like, Matt,
Well,
I know you well. I know our business well. Do not do
I
this.
had
And
I
it
had to
worked.
agree with him on that because I think you selling Mary Kay would not have gone well. So I'm glad that I mean the pink Cadillac and all would have been cool, but well, I think you know what? Like I always
Look
tell
at
my
my
kids.
downline.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
go ahead,
I
sorry.
think like I always tell my kids, there's no losing, there's only learning. And so
Yeah.
even when you have like you said, you know, you failed, I get it. Like you didn't achieve the originally intended goal, but you did achieve a series of a bit of awareness and a bit of learning from it, which you actually walked away from better and different. So I will vote up. I will say you didn't lose. I would say it didn't turn out the way you thought it would, but I think you got something from it still. That's how
We
my impression.
we had we had a guest on the show. His name's Mike Payton from EOS, from Entrepreneurial Operating System, and he was actually part of my year of 100 no's.
Yeah.
And he has this cool phrase, which I'm sure you guys have all heard, but they talk a lot about failing forward in their
Mhm.
organization, and I totally agree with that comment that you made, Rich. And it makes me think about the conversation I had with him, where it's like I could look back and actually be disappointed about maybe the second half of the year and my lack of pursuing these year of 100 no's, but life shifted a little bit. And
Yeah.
I think maybe one of the things that I've learned, and kind of segueing into your like year of awareness that you experienced, Rich, is like I'm so hard on myself when I don't achieve something, and
You
I
are.
just had to let it go. I had to let it and there's part of me that wants to kind of do an adapted version of this next year, because I really did have a lot of great traction with it. No pun intended, from the Mike Payton conversation. But like accepting that you've learned some stuff and like it's okay and you don't have to be perfect, man. That's actually a lot of our podcasts recently have been about like perfectionism and how to
Yeah.
cope with that. And
Perfectionism's a
that's
dangerous. It's a slippery slope and it's dangerous. And hustle culture and just even you guys being as successful as you are, and I sit back and just in awe having watched your trajectory. I mean, I can remember Johnny sitting in his like 7-year-old Infinity in front of my house and me coming out to get my mail, and he's just sitting there. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" And you were like going through some paperwork for like a meeting, and you were stressed out. And I think about that, like little Johnny in his little Infinity. And I think about all that you've achieved from then to now. And it's really not a very long period of time.
It's a
And
really funny story, but by the way, when you say Infinity, it sounds cool, but like you
no,
guys all know that thing was a clunker.
it
That
was
thing
8 years
was
old. No, it was 8 years old at the time. And
that thing was a clunker.
and
He
Luke
left
still till
dog poop
today.
inside of it.
My son still till today, he knows like what kind of engine that had. And he's like, really, if he would have worked on that, we could have tuned it. It would have been really good. Like
He was
Luke
a
thinks
goner.
it was a goner. But I honestly feel with all my heart that, this concept of, I think about like the Teddy Roosevelt, the man in the arena. You know what I mean? Like that whole long quote, which I should memorize it. I really should. I first heard it from Brene Brown, but that whole idea of the person sitting up in the stands criticizing the person in the arena doing the fight should just sit down and shut up. And you both, to me from an outside looking in, I watch you both. I work with you both. I had the pleasure of spending time with Matt on a professional basis, and just my wife and I are just like blown away by how good you are at what you do. And watching Johnny do these like endless like things to better himself. I don't know. My hat is off to both of you because I really I'm in awe of both of you, and you guys are very inspiring to me. So I don't know. I'll just give you that.
I think we had. I'll throw it back with a compliment, because I think we had the most to learn from you in your year of awareness. And like, interestingly, this whole conversation is really about awareness. Like, it's accepting what we did
It
this year,
is.
what we didn't do this year, and learning from that. And so maybe talk to us a little bit about
Okay, I will.
what did you really pursue this throughout the
Yes.
year? Was this something that you were
Yes.
actively,
Yes.
what
Yes.
did that look like for you?
So it looked like me going into therapy once a week and
Okay.
really investing in my mental health, which I never have. It was after losing my mom 2 years ago, and it opened up a whole, I mean, I'll just be so TMI right now. It opened up a whole reservoir of things that I kept behind the dam, and I realized in full transparency, which, and I apologize if this is TMI, but I realized that my mental health was really bad. And I realized that the coping mechanisms that I've used for the last several decades were unraveling. And I found myself in a very bad place. And when we started talking about this idea of awareness, I realized that I could not be aware because I was too busy trying to survive.
Mm,
When you're trying to survive, is a combination of awareness and a lack of awareness. Think about a person that's knocked off a boat. So Matt, you're a boater. Your boat's been, hit something and it's sinking and it's on
not good.
fire and you're by yourself and there's a storm and you're in the water. You will both be hyper aware, but also in a panic because you're trying to survive, but you're hyper focused on the moment, but you're also kind of scrambled. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's how I felt. So I committed to this and I decided to go into therapy, which is really funny. And this is kind of an ironic thing. My therapist's office, when I walk up the stairs, I can see Matt's truck at the office at Candor Path because it's the office park right next to yours.
See,
And
I
I
thought
can
the whole time you were just like really creepy
stalk,
dude and just
yeah,
were
stalking
just trying to
you.
follow me around at all times. I did notice your car, your white car a few times, and I just was wondering,
I think I
are we
even
too close?
I think a
So you
couple
think
times.
we're closer than we are?
I know. I think I even texted pictures of the parking garage, like, look at me. I'm talking to my therapist. But anyway, so
Sure, your
I sure.
therapist.
So I doubled down on that. So I went into therapy, which has been a real deep and difficult. So
Mm,
I have a funny sidebar story to tell for those of you that have decided to take that move and talk to somebody. And I've shared this with my wife because it's been kind of interesting. And I asked my therapist who listens to this podcast if it's okay to share this, and she said absolutely. But I had the last several therapy sessions. She had to grab a box of tissues because she was crying, and I go, it's really messed up. The last 3 therapy sessions we've had, I've made you cry. And I go, aren't I supposed to be the one crying? And she was like, I'm sorry, but we talked a lot about the things that I've been through and some stuff. And she also had a baby recently. She said, I'm really still emotional. And I guess being a mom, hearing these stories. So that was a real commitment on my part to just double down on that. And it has been life-changing. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I continued the journaling. The third thing is I created 3 habits for myself for awareness. One was to make eye contact and to put my hand on my mouth like this when my kids or my wife are talking, because I want to immediately launch into advice. I want to immediately launch into, or I want to start thinking about the next thing that I have to do. So I would do the physical act of making eye contact and putting my fist kind of in front of my mouth as a physical block to force myself to be present. And I I've not really talked about this with Dawn or my kids, but Luke has said to me, I feel like when I talk to you, I'm the only person in the room, which was
mm.
really like it got me in the feels. And Dawn said, I've never felt so close to you. Like the last several months, it's just been really good. So I've really doubled down on this. And in my work, because of what I do, speaking and all this kind of stuff, a lot of times people come up to me, and sometimes if it's a big conference and if I did a good job, I'll have dozens of people come up to me. And I just had a book come out And that also was part of being present, because I had to, while you guys were walking around in weighted vests at 5 in the morning, I was getting up at 5 in the morning and writing for 10 hours. And I would lose track of time when I was writing because I was so present in the moment. So I feel, I would tell you that for me, it has been somewhat of a success because it's created a couple of different life habits for me. The awareness has helped me try to heal some of the things that were really messed up about me. And I went to places in my psyche and my psychology and in my past that I have been afraid to, none of afraid, reluctant to talk about or to delve into, because I didn't see the benefit in it. Like, why relive abuse? Why relive these horrible things? Like, how is that going to help me? But man, it really did. So I would say that I have learned, I have a friend right now that's going through a journey with cancer. And yesterday actually was his first day of chemo and radiation. And he's going to be doing it for 6 weeks. And he had major surgery. And I was fortunate enough that I had some time that I was home and able to really like care for him and be there and change dressings for him and talk to him. And it was really it was a way that God kind of brought me into being present for my friend that really needs me. So I'm going to continue this. I'm doubling down on it, but I feel, success, failure, whatever you want to call it, but I feel like it's been useful and it's been a bit of an awakening for me.
I really respect the vulnerability to even have that conversation, because I think that's just something people aren't even that willing to talk about these days, like going into, doing therapy, like traditional talk therapy and stuff. Like Matt and I have talked about, like, we've done different forms of it, but I think traditional talk therapy is one of the most important things you can do. And the analogy that you gave earlier about the boat, like burning and sinking and that type of stuff, like that's what I heard when I heard you say that, is this, you kind of have this, like, you're constantly engaged in this like fight or flight feeling. Like you're constantly just putting out fires and dealing with stuff and going from one stressful thing to the next. And I identify with that in a different way. I met with a doctor this year and they were like, hey, your labs are kind of off. And so I was like talking through this with the doctor, and she basically said, listen, like, your cortisol levels are like through the roof. Like, you're just constantly in this state of fight or flight. And more than ever in the last 3 months, and this is part of my shift for the year, I've been doing a lot of meditation, kind of taking a lot of the advice, Rich, that you've given over the years, like in our conversations in this podcast, and really trying to meditate and focus on being more present and being more aware. And I commend you for your efforts in doing that this year.
I like that. Awesome. I see Rich has his hand over his fist, so I know he wants to say something. So I'm going to step right in the middle of this thing and say, no, you can't put that fist right back over your face, sir, and look me here in the eyes. No, I really loved what you stated. And I really love the fact you talked about mental health. And I love the fact that you went and got help. I always talk about this as advisors. We have a very unique perspective because we get to see the insides of what's happening in people's lives. And I can't tell you, and I'm not a mental health counselor, and I'm not putting myself out to be one. I can't tell you how many times I talk to or see people or know people that either priorities are just completely backwards, or they're just, they need that. And I think it's something that you kind of said TMI, like it's something to be shunned away from mental health, or seeking out a mental health counselor. I think it needs to be normalized, because so many people, I've one family member in particular, and it has mental health, he's off, and there's just no other way to say it. No, and everyone would agree with me, is that he needs to seek mental health counseling, because there are wires somewhere. He's not broken, just wires are just crossed in the wrong way, and needs to speak to someone about this. And my family, a lot of my extended family, just needed to, and a lot of them are no longer here anymore, needed to talk to some people. And now that I can see what that looks like, and I can look back and think of grandparents and that generation where it was never taught. Like, that was, you went to see someone when you were sick, not because you had these feelings that needed to come out or needed to talk to you. And so I love the fact you talked about it. I don't think there's anything to be shunned away from or to feel weird about. It should be a much more normalized process. We all have things that we're carrying that if we just keep them bottled up, it just continues to fester and bubble, or it comes out in a very negative way in our lives. Talking through a lot of that stuff is really critical. It's so much so that as part of one of our company benefits at CandorPath is that we provide mental health counseling for our employees as a benefit, and doesn't come through us. We don't hear about it. We don't get a report. It's we want everyone around us to be the best version of themselves. And sometimes you just need to talk to someone and get some stuff off your chest, or get some advice from someone who doesn't have a vested interest in your life. And so for us, we know how important it is. And so I love your year of being present. I love you putting that fist over your mouth. You know what? That's something I know if my wife is listening to this right now, she's going to be like, Matt, this is what you're doing in 2024. Put that fist over your mouth. Do not think about something while I'm talking to you. Do not interrupt me. You have the answer to everything, or think you do. It is time for you to be a listener and not a speaker at every single occasion. So if I took one thing away from today's podcast, I am now going to be looking you in the eye and I'm putting my fist.
But what I like about that is it expresses the value of being an active listener. I mean, like Matt and I have actually, you joked about it with Lauren, but you and I have had this conversation this year where I said, I don't need you to solve my problem right now. I just need you to kind of like hear me. Like I need to like think through this and talk out loud about this.
I heard,
Go ahead,
I want to share, I heard it was a gentleman in my company was doing a presentation about the different generations and what they need in the workspace, and the gifts and the benefits and the strengths. But what stuck out from my friend Todd's presentation was that he said in every communication, he was talking about in a professional setting, but it does relate to relationships. People either want to be heard, helped, or hugged. And the hugged is symbolic. It could be literal. Sometimes your kid is stressing out about something and they just need a hug, or your wife or your significant other, or if it's appropriate in the workplace, a hug could be just symbolic, whatever. Helped is, to your point, Matt, like, what do I do? Can you give me advice? How do I talk to this client? And heard is the other example that you gave. Like sometimes Lauren's just like, I just want to vent, just listen to me. And gender wise, I think sometimes men get a bad rap for always trying to be fix it people. I refuse to accept that as a negative. I think that comes from a good place, but I think there's also something to be learned from listening. And so I love the 3 H's: heard, helped, or hugged. And sometimes you could even get to the point where you feel comfortable enough with somebody where, and I do this with Dawn sometimes, where she's talking about something and I'll look at her and I go, in this situation, how do you want me to show up? You want to be heard, helped, or hugged? And she'll say to me, I want to be helped. I don't know how to respond to this email. Okay, I'll do that. Or she'll go, I just want to talk about it and let's just gossip and just go back and forth. Okay. And, she's kind of tougher than me. So it's rare that she needs a hug, but, sometimes there's that too. But, back to mental health real quick as we wrap up. I just, for me, I felt there was a point where I was unraveling, and it was a very difficult place to be. And I just realized I needed to be here for my family. I needed to be here for my friends. I needed to be here for the people that depend upon me. And I'm so grateful that I found that discipline. And for me, it's, I wake up now every morning and the first thing I do, I read something from the Bible and I pray for the people. I pray for you guys. I pray for, I was heavily in prayer for John's wife when she was going through a medical situation, and for his son. And when I say on a text, like, hey, I'm praying for you, it's not like, oh, praying for you. I really do, because I believe in the power of that. And I think that's been a great place for me to just get connected spiritually. And that's how I start, my day, and helping me to be present. I'm present. For me, it's my, Christian beliefs, and in my, getting kind of focused on that's my meditation. And I think it's just important, whether it's yes, whether it's no, whether it's awareness or presence, is just the willingness to kind of be honest and real with yourself, and to say, what do I need to work on? What are the things where I feel like I'm struggling? Do I need help from the outside? Do I need to talk to a friend? Sometimes it's not therapy. Sometimes you just need a friend. You just need to pull your friend. So this is just a message to anybody that's listening. If you're going through a tough time, if you're feeling like you're unraveling, if you feel like you're overwhelmed, please don't be afraid. Like Matt said, mental health awareness should be normalized. I will call out men in particular. I saw a very, very sad social media post where it started off with a female, and she's saying like, when, I'm going through a hard time, I just call one of my friends and, what do you guys do? Like, and then it's one post after another. It made me cry, of men who just tagged onto it and said, I've got nobody. I don't talk to anybody. I'm a man. And one after the other, different accents, different countries. And I had tears in my eyes. They were from their 20s to their 60s. And for all human beings, male, female, doesn't matter, reach out, talk to somebody, find somebody. There's resources. I just want to say I'm really grateful that we've had this opportunity to have 100 podcasts, and we've watched this podcast blow up and get real big and then kind of slow down when we slowed down because of work commitments and family commitments. But I want to thank, on behalf of John and Matt, if it's okay to do so, everybody who's joined, everybody who's stuck with us, whether it's folks from the Candor Path world, whether it's folks that have followed me on social media. But our intention for this podcast is to just have conversations, just to be the three people that maybe you wish, or you would love to hang out with and just chat with. And maybe you're thinking some of the same things that we're thinking, but it's an honor on this journey of life to be able to share, some time with you. So thank you. Any other thoughts that you guys want to say as we celebrate 100?
Well, I'd say amen and back at you. I think, so I got the opportunity to be very involved in the post edit for last episode, which was a mashup of 4 episodes that we did over the course of the year. And it had me reflecting on, like, I just so enjoy these conversations that we have.
Me
and
too.
The vulnerability. Like today, I didn't know this is where today was going to go, but here we are being vulnerable and sharing things. And I think it's interesting because we're all these different, we talk about this all the time, like we're different ages and we're from different generations. But I heard this thing online that, it was like a video I watched, and this guy was explaining that like from the ages of like 35 to 55 tend to be some of the most unhappiest, like the hardest years in life, because you're just dealing with so much stress and trauma and, raising a family, and there's just so much happening there. And to be able to talk about it with you guys and have these conversations, I'm just so appreciative. So back at you. And it's just cool for me to I can't believe we're at 100 episodes. I literally can't believe it. Blows my mind.
I love the variability of topics that we have. It can go from mental health to work balance. I'm not going to say work-life balance or balance at all, because I don't want to get into a fight with you here today, Rich. And then we go into financial topics. There's a little bit of everything for everybody. If financial topics are boring to you and you love hearing about life and things that we have to add to maybe make your life a better place or help you and point you in the direction, then we have that. And if you do love hearing about financial topics, I'm your guy. Give me a financial topic to discuss and I will go nuts on it. So I love how we just kind of change up these topics. It's not one thing, but it really speaks to the name of what our podcast is. And it's above board, meaning that we talk with open honesty, fairness, reasonable, and try to be objective as we possibly can. So I'm looking forward to our 200th episode, in the next handful of years. I love doing this with you guys, and here's to a great 2024. And let's leave 2023 in the rear view, because at least for John's family, I mean, for no one else,
for nobody else,
we need to clean that slate off and have a real good holiday here and a good happy new year.
Absolutely. And speaking of John's family, John, Ava has a little cute, 2 tiny little gifts to cheer up Huddy and Ella. So
so
we'll drop
sweet.
those by later. All right. Well, as we wrap it up in our little outro moment, thank you all for being part of Above Board with Candor Path. Thank you for sticking with us for 100. And as Matt said, here's to the next Chindan, as my Italian people say, to the next 100. God bless you and your families. Thank you for everything. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and may all of your days be awesome. Thank you for joining us on Above Board with Candor Path. Until the next time, ciao.